Welcome back to the channel. We have not talked about the Power of the Force 2 line from 1995 to 2000 in quite a while on the channel. So I did some digging on eBay just to see what types of items have been selling. And it's nothing too crazy, but I did find some interesting sales that I wanted to kind of go over. We've got some pre-production type items, some factory errors, which is very common for the Power of the Force 2 line, just because of all the characters and all the different card back iterations. Lots of errors seep through in the line. And then I've got some autographs and some other graded items, things like that. So let's go ahead and dig into some recent sales. This is one, I don't know why I included this other than it's just an item that I don't remember from the Power of the Force 2 line. It looks like the 12-inch Stormtrooper along with a Black Series style dewback. So maybe I just don't remember this item ever being at retail when I was collecting these when they were in stores, but this is I assume a pretty massive item, and it did sell for $76 from Brian's Toys, dewback and Sand Trooper. So I was having trouble figuring out what the size was. So there it is, actual length 32 inches. So that is a massive toy. And a pretty good deal for kind of, you could take it out of the box and kind of put it in your centerpiece for your Tatooine shelf if you have kind of different themes for your collection room. But I thought that was a pretty cool item that I don't remember ever being at retail. Next up was an actual 3 3/4 inch Sand Trooper on the freeze frame action slide card back. And this is usually one of the more expensive items. This is one I did have in my collection for a while, but the freeze frame Sand Trooper is one to keep an eye out for if you ever find a good deal on one. This one did sell for $75. And talking about some errors, here is one where Han Solo was not packed in with the long rifle. So you can see what it's supposed to look like with his massive blaster pistol that is way too big. And then his long rifle or blaster rifle that comes packed in behind him on the right side. So this one that was for sale did not have that packed in. And that's a pretty common thing, as I alluded to earlier, that missing paint apps, missing accessories, incorrect card backs, upside down figures. I mean, you name it. There are lots of weird errors for the Power of the Force 2 line just because they were pumping these things out as fast as they could. You got to remember that the 1995, that was kind of during the height of the Dead period. And when these things got re-released, everyone got really excited because we hadn't seen Star Wars figures since 1985. And unfortunately, the figures themselves were pretty ugly. I mean, I think that most of us would agree that these overly bulked up figures, while they were probably appropriate to compete with superhero action figures and things like that for the 1990s, they just, in general, are not great figures, in my opinion. Next up was an error card. This one was the freeze frame action slide for Boba Fett, but it's missing the shoulder skull emblem. So Boba Fett in particular, as we've always talked about, always had lots of weird errors, but this one was missing the shoulder emblem. There's also obviously hand variants where instead of full circles, there's half circles, or missing circles that we're going to cover in a second. But missing chest emblem is another one. Missing Wookiee braids or unpainted rockets or unpainted feet. I mean, there's just so many different variants for Boba Fett, and this one was missing the shoulder emblem, and that one did sell for $300. That's one of the more expensive variants. The missing chest emblem is another one that's pretty popular, and the no circle or no kind of imprints at all on the hand or half circles. The half circles are pretty common, but no circles are a little bit more expensive, and this is one of those. This one has a half circle on one hand and no circle at all on the other hand, and that one was listed for $265. The best offer accepted on that was $185. And quick note that Power of the Force 2 Happy Place was the seller. This is a seller I bought some pre-production items from the Power of the Force 2 line, Matthew I. And he has a page on Facebook called Power of the Force 2 Happy Place. You can also check out the Prototype Exchange on Facebook if you're looking for pre-production Power of the Force 2 items. or Deal or No Deal is another really good spot to find a lot of these pre-production items. I found a few that sold on eBay, but most of the really hot, really good Power of the Force 2 pre-production items, first shots, unpainted prototypes, engineering samples, things like that, those are going to be on Facebook. That's going to be your best bet to find those. eBay is kind of the place of last resort. I think in general, eBay does not have a lot of pre-production Power of the Force 2 items. Every once in a while, you do see some, but Prototype Exchange, Power of the Force 2 Happy Place, Deal or No Deal, that's where I tend to see most of the really awesome Power of the Force 2 prototypes. Some autographed items, Kenny Baker, that one sold for $100. We had a Darth Vader, Dave Prowse signed green card with the foil, collection 1. That one sold for $123. It feels to me like Dave Prowse is moving up a little bit in price. Kenny Baker's moving down, and Jeremy Bulock also seems to be going down. Billy D. Williams, this one sold for $90. I can understand that because he's still alive and he's still very active on the convention trail, so he's not hard to find for his autograph on Power of the Force 2 items. Here's that Jeremy Bulock. I don't know why, given that Jeremy Bulock passed away fairly recently, you would think that these maybe would move up a little bit, but he was just so prolific with his signing that it's really not difficult to find various Jeremy Bulock signed Power of the Force 2 items. So this one was in an auction and sold for $81. Now for some graded items. I thought this was a good deal. And none of these were particularly rare, but it was a lot of 8 Power of the Force 2 and Episode 1 figures that sold. So you had a Luke Skywalker Yavin ceremony. You had a red card R2-D2. And let's see, that one was graded 80. We had a foil collection 1 Luke Skywalker. That's just the standard saber, although the Luke X-Wing does come with the transition tray saber where it's got the shorter saber packed in. And obviously he's not as desirable as one I'm going to show you in a second, but that's one character along with Luke Dagobah. And I've seen a very rare Obi-Wan Kenobi with the transition tray, and then Darth Vader. But there's all kinds of different ones. But this one was the Power of the Force 2 green card, graded 80. Here was a Hoth Stormtrooper on the foil card that also was graded 80. You had a Qui-Gon Jinn with the Comtech chip. That's kind of a cool one. That was only graded 70. So none of these were particularly high grade. This one was the Comtech chip Darth Maul on the Episode 1 card. That one was graded 85. So that's kind of a nice one. And then we had a Princess Leia Organa who, I mean, let's get real. I don't know who at Kenner / Hasbro approved that figure mold for Leia. That is a really rough face sculpt for Princess Leia. And that one was graded 80. And then we had a Princess Leia in Bouche disguise. That one was also graded 70. So none of these were particularly high grade or rare, but you know, you got a lot of 8 of them, kind of an instant collection. $209.50 on that one. We had a green card Luke Skywalker graded uncirculated 85. And again, that's just the standard saber, the standard shorter saber. But there were some card backs that included the long saber, and then there were some that had the short saber packed in to the long saber inner tray. That one sold for $76. Here is Luke Hoth. I don't remember ever seeing a transition tray for Luke Hoth. I think all of them had the standard shorter saber. That one was graded 85, sold for $76 from the same seller. Same with Luke Jedi Knight. I don't remember any transition trays for him. I think he was a later character release. $76 on that one. That one was graded 85. And then you had the freeze frame action slide that was graded 90. I thought this was a good deal at $113. I would have expected that one to go closer to $200. The freeze frame action slide for Boba Fett is one of the more desirable ones, along with the next one, which is the THX insert tri-logo. So a lot of the tri-logo card backs had like a THX paper insert on the back of those card backs, and you can see the tri-logo there. That one was also graded 85 and sold for $113. And we had a Luke Stormtrooper on a foil collection 2 card back that was graded uncirculated 85. It was listed for $150. The best offer accepted was $135 on that one. That was a nice example there. All right, here's the big one. This is a transition tray Luke Skywalker on the US card back. This is one of the more expensive items from the Power of the Force 2 line in terms of retail release. And there's also a tri-logo version of this short saber inside the longer tray. So they call those transition trays. And you can see the short saber there with the longer inner tray. And that just means that the original release lightsabers were much longer, and they switched over to a shorter saber and continued to use those inner trays until they ran out of them, I guess. They probably just had a lot of them. So this one was graded AFA 9.0 on the modern scale, and $1,000 to me seems really high. I mean, that's just me. I feel like I paid like $300 for, now admittedly mine was the tri-logo. The US card is really what you want. That's considered one of the holy grails for the Power of the Force 2 line, along with the freeze frame action slide Weequay of all things. That's just one of those low production items. But there's a good close up there that shows that new shorter saber inside the original issue long saber tray. And they just shortened the saber because the saber was as big as the figure, and decided to shorten it down. So pretty cool item though. Again, I don't know if I'd pay $1,000 for it, just because the Power of the Force 2 line, even in high grade like this, it's a very select, very limited market. And I think, to me, if I'm going to drop $1,000, it's going to be on something probably vintage, or pre-production. I can see paying some pre-production prices. I've seen some really nice pre-production Power of the Force 2 items that can sell for many thousands of dollars, but I think for a standard retail release item, that's pushing it. Here is a Kenner standard green card for Greedo. I had one of these for Nyan Num, but this was just basically a factory sample. Obviously, it's got the Smile logo there. This is from 11/12/96, and they just taped these to the back of the card as they were testing out the production facility to make sure it was producing items correctly. So this is a really cool item that, it's kind of considered a later stage prototype or pre-production. Just making sure that these quality control samples were going to be fine once they started ramping up production for retail. So that one sold for $145. Here was a really cool one. This was an engineering pilot sample for the X-Wing fighter. So electronic X-Wing fighter. And usually with these engineering pilots, they pretty much look like retail. It's really hard to tell any differences from it. But this was found in a box where it says EP sample HFE office. So this was Hasbro Far East office boxed samples that were supposed to be thrown away once they kind of tested them out and make sure that they were producing okay. But the Kenner employee or Hasbro employee decided to hold on to it. So HFE just means Hasbro Far East, and pretty cool item there. That one sold for $270. The standard retail release goes for, $120 to $150 mint in sealed box. This one had been opened, obviously, because the engineers got to make sure that the internal item works just fine. But I thought that was a really cool example there. And I don't know if this box was included along with the X-Wing fighter. I would almost want to have that box just to show that it was a engineering pilot example, but very cool. Next up, we've got a couple of transparencies. These were pretty cool. These were 12-inch Power of the Force 2 transparencies. Again, these were from Matthew I, who is a trusted seller that I bought from. But pretty cool to see a Luke X-Wing transparency, a kind of a pre-production item, as those were being produced. And they're not very expensive. You're going to pay a lot more for Kenner related, original vintage Kenner related transparencies. But these Power of the Force 2 transparencies are not very expensive. This one sold for $30, as did the other one that he had for sale, which was the TIE Fighter palette. So very cool items there. And then finally, it's not Power of the Force 2, but it's based on Power of the Force 2. This is a Russian Oret bootleg boss that is based on the Power of the Force 2 mold. And this one was graded CAS 85+. I've got one of these in my collection along with some other color variations, but I just wanted to show that since we're talking about the Power of the Force 2 line, and the Russian Oret bootlegs were based on those figures. So this one sold for $300. It was a CAS 85 Plus in hot pink, which is the most common for that Russian Oret bootleg boss. So pretty cool sale there. Anyway, I hope you got something out of this recent kind of update on the Power of the Force 2 line. And thank you as always for watching. I really appreciate the channel support, and I'll be back very soon.